Hey friends, welcome to another Wellness Wednesday. In this video, I wanted to chat a little bit about some thoughts that I have had about the progression of trying to find the perfect diet. And then from that journey, where I've kind of come and landed in giving up this idea of finding the perfect diet. When I first started my health journey, I was coming from a very standard American diet, very addicted to sugar, lots of processed food, lots of fast food. And when I first jumped into anything related to health is when I started the Atkins diet back when I was 19. I think I was 19. And from reading the Atkins diet book, the first thing is, oh no, carbs are bad. I need to cut out carbs. And that was amazing and wonderful. And a lot of good things happened to my body when I did that. And then as I, kept progressing, come to find out about, organic versus non-organic, grass-fed versus conventional. I got into the Weston A. Price Foundation information about soaking grains and beans and fermentation and raw dairy versus pasteurized dairy. And I just kind of went down that path of stricter and stricter and more rules and more rules. And whenever I'd find out that something was bad, I was like, well, I got to get that out. If we just keep going and we keep narrowing things down, eventually we'll get to perfect. And then we just stay wherever that is, we just stay there. And then life is wonderful after that. And all the good things happen from then on. And then of course, once you start going down that road with food, you end up kind of going down that road with other things as well. Like you find out that plastic is really bad for you and that, you'd be better off if you just didn't eat or drink anything that's ever touched plastic. Of course, definitely don't put plastic in the microwave. And for that matter, just stop using the microwave because there's some bad things that could happen there as well. Aluminum foil is definitely going to give you Alzheimer's disease. And then your shampoos and your cosmetics and all these different things have all these terrible things, and you reduce and cut out and reduce and cut out and reduce and cut out. And what I found is that if I continued going down that path, eventually, I just have to lay down in the dirt and die. Because if you look into anything hard enough, it's going to kill you. Because life is going to kill you. And then on top of all that, there's so much conflicting information about what is good and what is bad. And so even if you, have decided that some certain thing is bad and you cut it out, you might find out the next day or from some other resource that that thing is good. And actually you should be consuming it, and you should be consuming it even more. So I know for me in my journey, that got very exhausting very fast, and I tried really hard. I'm kind of a perfectionist in certain things where I like to just, if I have a desired result, I want to just put my head down and work and work and work and figure it out until it's done. I don't like having things undone. So I was like, I am going to figure out how I need to eat in order to have the healthy body that I want. And then I am going to work hard to figure out how my family needs to eat because I want to be a good mother. I want to be a good wife. I want to provide the right foods for my family. And in the end, I found myself just chasing my tail, trying to get to this perfection that I realized in the end doesn't actually exist. Now, I'm not saying that there aren't better choices than others, but it's definitely not black and white, and it could look very different for different people. So instead of trying to think of what is the perfect food or is this food good or bad anymore, I think about it a lot differently. I think about it in relation to what I want for my life, what my goals are, how is this food going to make me feel, how is this food going to move me towards or away from any kind of health goals that I have. Also, I make sure to measure if it's going to be good for my enjoyment. I think that's really important for your emotional and mental well-being to have food that you enjoy. So aside from if it's healthy for my body, is it going to be healthy for my mental and emotional side? Also, I like to think about, is it going to be healthy for me in my community health? Is it going to help me enter into this community that I want to be a part of, to enter in and have a meal together with people that I want to feel close to. And it's very, very, very rare that when I look at all of those things that I try to think about and balance, it's very rare that all of those are like a resounding yes. Usually there's some that are a yes and some that are a no. And every situation and every food is going to have some benefits in different aspects of my health, and it's going to have some negatives in different aspects of my health. Definitely the foods and situations where I can answer yes to more of those questions make me the most excited, and I love those so much, but those are extremely rare. So when I do pick a food that maybe, for example, is less healthy for my body, but is more healthy for me in regards to my community health or my social health, and is really enjoyable and it's, good for my mental health, and it's not so bad for my physical health that it's gonna like negate those things. If I were just looking at the nutrition side of it, if I were to enter in and eat one of those things or that meal or whatever, I could go into it feeling guilty, like I'm cheating, like I'm going off plan. And that can drive all kinds of other behaviors that are destructive and not helpful for any of those health goals that I talked about before. But when I gauge a food or a meal or a situation using all of the metrics, then I can, be honest with myself and say, now I know that this particular food isn't as nutritionally healthy for my body, but when I balance it with the other benefits I'm going to get from it, I find it's a net positive for me. So I can feel good about it. I don't have to feel guilty. I'm still taking care of my body. I'm still taking care of my health. I'm just doing it in a more holistic way. So like I said, I'm balancing all these different aspects of health when I make decisions about what I eat. And that's how I balance them for myself because of my own unique sensitivities and strengths and likes and dislikes and all of those things. And for each person, that is going to look completely different. And I recognize that those that are dealing with more severe health issues, if you have like an autoimmune disease that's out of control, that, physical, nutritional side of it may tip the scales almost every single time, where the community health and the social health and the enjoyment is totally outweighed by how a certain food will make you feel. And that's where, of course, we all have to just be honest with ourselves and, look at our own unique situation and decide where that gauge is for us. And it's going to be different for everybody. And I do find it interesting that those who are extremely zealous about like the perfect nutrition in every bite of food that you eat often are not applying those same principles to other parts of their life. So I could make the argument that living in a big city is really bad for your health. First of all, you're getting lots more exhaust from cars, and that's carcinogenic. It's really, really bad for you. So if you really cared about your health, you would move out to the country. But of course, in the country, there are still cars and tractors and quads that drive around with diesel fumes. So you can't even just move out to the country. You need to, go find a jungle that hasn't been touched by humans, where no motorized vehicles are. If you really cared about your health, you would cut out exhaust 100% from your consumption. Of course, that's a super extreme example, but it's to illustrate that we make choices not 100% based on health consequences every time. In that situation, we recognize that sometimes the benefits of living in the city and having all the shops and the people and the community services and all of those things around is of more net benefit to us than avoiding the carcinogenic exhaust fumes from cars. And of course, there are those individual people who have such severe health problems, maybe asthma or some kind of a breathing issue, where it's not worth it for them to live in the city. Those benefits of living in the city all of a sudden become smaller when they recognize that that exhaust is making their health conditions worse. And so maybe for them, it is worth it to move farther out where there's not as much car exhaust. But again, that is where we all get to look at our situations differently and judge what is of value to us and what is not as valuable and that we're willing to give up. And for those of you that have watched me for a while, you know that this is an ever evolving thing in my life. And I think it's just something that we have to continue to refine. And as we age, certain things become less worth it or more worth it. And so things change as we move on. So for example, 6 months ago, if you went back and watched my Wellness Wednesdays from back then, I said at that point, it wasn't worth it for me to give up dairy. I was still getting the benefit of the enjoyment of it. I was still getting the benefit of being able to order more options at restaurants. I was getting the benefit of the convenience of it. So many benefits from eating dairy. And then I decided to cut it out because I knew that there were some negatives, and I didn't know for sure if the negatives outweighed the positives yet. So I did the trial test run and found out that yes, the negatives do outweigh the positives for me. And so that's when I changed and I cut it out. So it wasn't that I all of a sudden learned that dairy can have negatives. Oh no, now I have to cut it out. It was, I don't know yet if this food is a net benefit or net negative for me. So I'm going to test it out. It's a pretty subtle difference in thinking. But for me, it's been really transformative. Instead of this black and white thinking of good and bad, just recognizing that there's no perfect. So no matter how good you get anything, it's never going to be perfect. You're always going to have to choose some negative side. And when you just accept that and you see it more as a balancing act, it can take a lot of the stress away because you're not stressed every time there's something bad that comes in. You're like, oh yeah, I know that there are bad things that are going to come into my body and come into my life, and I just have to learn how to balance it. Or like, for example, whenever my kid would get given a piece of candy or something, and I'd think about all the bad things in the piece of candy, it'd be like, oh no, this is bad. But now, because I think about the benefits of them being able to participate in communal activities that involve some candy, or them being able to receive a gift that someone gave them out of, love and generosity, and recognizing that I can feed them lots of healthy foods at home and that they can still have, the healthy bodies that is possible even with that little bit of candy that they were given. So I look at all of the positives of the candy instead of just the one negative of it's bad for your nutritional health. So in that way, it kind of takes the stress off and you just kind of learn to go with the flow a little bit. You can of course adjust the flow and try to influence it and all that, but you kind of have to go with the flow a little bit. So those are my thoughts on perfection versus balance in diet and in life. And I did want to point out that this is in no way talking negatively about Dr. Berry's Perfect Health Diet. I actually absolutely love his approach, and the way he uses the word perfect there, I think, is a great way. This was in no way in response to that. And actually, I think just from watching him and watching his wife, Nisha, that they probably would agree with what I say. I can't say that for sure because I haven't asked them, but I think they kind of have a similar perspective of not needing to go towards perfection. They eat conventional meat and conventional dairy. Nisha even uses a Nespresso pod with aluminum capsules. Oh my gosh. I just wanted to make it clear that this is in no way a response to their specific diet, and I wholeheartedly approve of the Perfect Health Diet from Dr. Berry and totally recommend it. Anyways, that is it for now. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you again in another video.